On August 5, 1990, in Shelby, North Carolina, Asha Degree was born. Asha was known as an energetic, kind, and outgoing girl. She had a close relationship with her family, which consisted of her mother, Akila Degree, her father, Harold Degree, and her brother O'Brien, who was just 11 months older than her. Asha lived a very sheltered life. The family didn't own a television or a computer and prioritized activities such as church, school, and family time. Though she was known to be shy by most, she was described as extremely determined and competitive whenever she was on the court playing basketball.
Monday, February 13, 2000, the Degrees household underwent a power outage in the late evening due to a car crash close by. Due to the power outage, the kids were not able to take their usual nighttime bath. Akila took them to bed extra early so she could wake up early and bathe them. Harold arrived home from work later that night and checked on Asha and O'Brien before heading to bed. At 5:45, Akila got up from bed and went to get the kids ready for school. To her horror, Asha was nowhere to be seen. She began frantically searching and, while in a state of shock, threw her phone at Harold to call 911. The police were on the scene by 6:48. After investigating the scene, the police determined that Asha had most likely to have left voluntarily. She had packed a backpack, missing clothes, and her purse. The cops also were not able to find any trace of forced entry or anyone else in the house. Aisha's parents wouldn't accept this answer. Aisha was only 9 years old, and her parents knew that this was highly out of character for her. Additionally, they knew that their daughter hated storms, and there had been a rather tumultuous one the morning of her disappearance.
As investigations went on, it was confirmed that two motorists had seen a young black girl on Highway 18 around 3:30 to 4 a.m. The description of the clothes matched the exact ones missing from Aisha's closet. Another report was made that a man driving on the highway saw a young girl walking on the street and tried to pull over and ask if she was okay before she took off running into the tree line. Nothing else was found until February 15th, when a woman reported finding a Mickey Mouse hair bow, a green marker, and a pencil in her shed located not far from the highway. When CSI arrived on the scene, they recovered candy wrappers that matched the type that Aisha had received at a basketball game a few days prior. The next lead wasn't until 18 months later. Off Highway 18, found in a different direction than Aisha was walking in, a contractor digging a service road had recovered a double trash-bagged backpack buried on their client's property. The backpack was soon confirmed to be Aisha's. It contained some of her own clothes and school supplies, but also included a Dr. Seuss book from her school library and a New Kids on the Block t-shirt that her mother said did not belong to Aisha. It was later sent off to be tested by forensic scientists.
There were no further updates until May of 2016 when both the FBI and the local police showed renewed interest in the case. Between 2015 and 2020, investigators reported that they had received over 300 tips regarding Asha's disappearance. One of these tips would become a crucial part of the investigation. The FBI reported that on the day of her disappearance, someone had seen Asha get into a dark green vehicle that was described as either an early 70s Lincoln Continental Mark IV or an early 70s Ford Thunderbird with rust around the rims of its wheels.
After information about the car came out, the case went cold again for nearly 8 years, despite continued efforts by multiple agencies. In early September 2024, everything about the case changed. As it turned out, investigators had finally gotten matches for 2 DNA profiles recovered from Asha's backpack, which led investigators to a local Shelby family known as the Deadmans. Just a few days later, a car similar to the one described in the tip was seen being towed by the sheriff's office during a warrant-issued search at a property owned by Roy Dedman. This evidence led authorities to suspect that Aisha had been murdered and her body concealed. Warrants revealed that Roy and his wife, Connie Dedman, were considered suspects, and it appeared that their involvement would have been crucial in covering up the crime.
Roy Dedman had 3 daughters, Lizzie, who was 16, Sarah, who was 15, and Annalee, who was 13 at the time. With Roy and his girls being prime suspects, warrants were released allowing police to gather things from the family, such as notebooks, electronics, journals, a rifle, and records for a man named Russell Underhill, who was a tenant at one of the family's homes in 2000. Investigators also found traces of Russell's DNA on Asha's shirt. The Deadmans had no connection to Asha or her family, so the DNA linking to these people was extremely out of the ordinary. In February 2000, Roy had reportedly been caring for Russell while he was having health issues and staying at Cleveland Healthcare. Roy's daughter Lizzie would frequently transport patients from the area to a place called Broughton Hospital. The Deadmans lived about 6 minutes from where Asha was last seen walking on Highway 18. Investigators had said that this is the route that would have been most logical for Lizzie to take while taking one of these night runs. The search warrants also went on to find that Roy had 29 vehicles listed in his name, and 3 of which were green. In later interviews with Sarah, it was discovered that back in later years, she drove a dark green 1964 AMC Rambler that her dad had given her in 1999. It was similar to the picture released earlier of what the car that pulled Asha in was thought to look like. Police soon came out with a statement that they believe Asha is no longer missing and is now considered a victim of a homicide whose body was concealed.
Russell is confirmed to have died in 2004 and can no longer be questioned regarding the case. The Deadman family stood strong on their stance of innocence, but on February 13, 2025, the case took an interesting turn. 3 more search warrants were put out on the Deadman family, specifically issued to investigate them for a felony of obstruction of justice. They found head-turning deleted texts and emails between Lizzie, Roy, and Sarah. One of the most questioning texts was from Lizzie to Sarah saying, "They think it's our shirt. It's not her shirt. Her mom said it wasn't hers. I don't remember that shirt. I'm scared, though Dad's probably going to be a huge suspect." This likely refers to the shirt found in the buried backpack belonging to Asha. There are multiple messages of Lizzie talking about how anxious and nervous she was and how it was her fault that she caused this. Lizzie had been interviewed by investigators about the case around this time and had also taken a polygraph test, which came back with signs of deception. Roy, Sarah, and Lizzie were now prime suspects to the police. The Deadman family to this day maintains their innocence, and no new information regarding the case has been released.
The stretch of North Carolina Highway 18 where Asha was last spotted would be considered the primary crime scene. The shed where some of her items were recovered and that she may have used to take shelter from the storm is a microscene. The green car Asha was allegedly pulled into and the place where her backpack was discovered are secondary scenes.
Considering the information we could access, we believe that it's possible a member of the Deadman family, most likely Lizzie, accidentally hit Asha while driving home on the morning of February 14th due to low visibility from the storm and possibly intoxication. Fearful of the consequences, she may have enlisted her family in helping her conceal the evidence. As for why Asha was on the road that morning, it's difficult to say. There had been no prior instances of her running away, and by all accounts, her home life was healthy. It's been suggested that she experienced an extreme case of sleepwalking, although this seems unlikely given how prepared she was.
The Deadman family should have been questioned about where their whereabouts were on the day of Asha's disappearance. This would begin to help establish whether or not any members of the Deadman family had a reliable alibi or were able to commit the crime. In addition, the accident and repair history of the vehicle removed from their property may prove to be useful in further examination of the secondary scene.
One of the biggest forensic issues with this case is the general lack of physical evidence. Besides the aforementioned items, nothing else has been found to date, least of all Asha herself. This presents a massive challenge for investigators due to the amount of information that could be disconcerted from the examination of her remains. Determining Asha's cause of death, in particular, would be instrumental in allowing investigators to deduce the series of events that resulted in her fatality. Additionally, one of the primary suspects whose DNA was recovered in Asha's backpack died 4 years after her disappearance, preventing him from giving investigators any supplementary information about the crime.
It is unclear when exactly investigators received the tip regarding the green car, but this information should have been released far earlier than 2017, as it could have allowed officials to recover the car earlier, possibly with more forensic evidence intact. Curiously, investigators believed that this tip was reliable enough to make the public despite receiving hundreds of tips in between 2015 and 2020. If the tip was indeed received in 2017, the reliability of the information is dubious as the event in question happened nearly 2 decades earlier.
Investigators should have searched registration records for cars similar to the one reported in the years shortly before and after Asha was declared missing and followed up with the owners. During this case, there was many forensic science resources that were not used. Investigators did not have access to advanced DNA testing, which could have helped trace her belongings sooner and quicker. Digital forensics, such as cell phone data or analysis, were also not possible at the time.